Hi, Dave from Informed American talking to you this afternoon, posing a question, another question for you guys. Are state lockdown orders unconstitutional? Now, we got two stories I want to go over, and if you saw the scheduled post here on Facebook ahead of time, I had two links there. One of them is sort of a Twitter thread that you can see the links to video, and another one is a story on Informed American about what's going on in Wisconsin. So I think we all have been sort of talking about this topic a lot, but now there might be some actual movement going on, which will be in our second story. And maybe to set the table here, just thinking about, are these things unconstitutional? If you do a little bit of research, a lot of the justification for these lockdown orders goes to either some state laws, but primarily a 1905 U.S. Supreme Court decision that was about a pastor who sued because this was a time when there were smallpox vaccinations going on, and they were mandated, and this pastor sued, saying it was a violation of his individual rights to be vaccinated. So he sued, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that the government can, in certain instances, and particularly in this instance with the smallpox vaccine, it says here's a quote here from the decision: upon the principle of self-defense of paramount necessity, a community has the right to protect itself against an epidemic of disease which threatens the safety of its members. So here they go. There's smallpox going on here. We have a vaccine. This is a horrible disease that's been uncontrollable until they got a vaccine. Now everyone has to get one. And, your individual choice, your individual right is essentially subsumed by the safety of the community at large. And that's kind of what's going on right here. We don't have a vaccine, but this is sort of the justification, right? In order to protect the community at large, we have to shut down these businesses because, the way this thing is communicable, this is in the interest of public safety. And here's our justification, this 1905 Supreme Court decision. So let's go to these two stories. Well, first story, if you check out that first link to that Twitter thread, this is a video of a Dallas woman being sentenced 7 days in jail for refusing to close her salon. She was fined. She was a popular she was seen at many protests around the Dallas area, and she gets hauled into court for not closing down her salon. And here, if you watch this, really go watch this video. At least if you're not watching it now, go watch it at the end of this. If you haven't seen it already, the judge goes to this sort of long-winded 2-minute thing, saying, apologize, say you're sorry, say it was selfish, say you were putting the community at danger, and I won't send you to jail. Instead, I'll give you a fine. And she says, screw that. I'm not going to apologize. I don't think it was selfish. I'm trying to feed my family and my workers. They're starving. They're trying to feed their families. And basically, I don't care. Is feeding your family more important than the law? And that's kind of the question, right? Whether or not that law is constitutional, leaving that aside. But for now, that is the order. What's more important, feeding my family or obeying the law? And that brings up a really interesting ethical question. Love to know what you think about this story if you haven't heard it yet. So she's got 7 days. She's got to think about what she did. What's she going to do when she gets out? Is she going to reopen her salon again and go back to jail? Something tells me she's going to remain defiant. So that one is certainly a story to follow. Now, in Wisconsin, the story we put this out on informedamerican.com. The Wisconsin Supreme Court right now is weighing in on a lawsuit from state GOP lawmakers who are challenging the governor's lockdown order. And this came from the health secretary, who again cited statutes from the early 1900s, probably very similar to the one to the smallpox case, that give their Department of Health this broad authority to combat this kind of disease. And here we go again, right? So there's a really interesting quote here from one of the justices, who's, how do we weigh the state's responsibility to limit the spread of this disease versus your own individual rights? And here's a question here: isn't it the very definition of tyranny for one person to order people to be imprisoned for going to work among other ordinary lawful activities? Asked Justice Rebecca Bradley. Good question, and it's essentially what's legalese aside, that's basically what happened in Texas. Is this right? Is this violating our basic rights to tell someone what's normally a lawful activity under any other circumstance is now illegal? So if you haven't heard this story, there's a decision expected to come down very soon, maybe even as early as today. And what will that mean? What if the Supreme Court invalidates the lockdown order? Wisconsin will be open, and then maybe some other state people will sue. We could see cases going around. Will this have a ripple effect around the country? Now, I suspect at some point this will make its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, but by the time it does, unless they have some sort of an emergency provision where they could hear something quickly and rule on it nationwide, which maybe they will, but otherwise I'm assuming it's going to take a while and this stuff might all be done with. But at least we can get some sort of ruling. This is really interesting. I would love to know what you think about this case going on in Wisconsin, and if the Wisconsin Supreme Court rules against the governor, which would essentially open up the state, do you think this would have a ripple effect around the country? Love to know what your thoughts are on these two stories, and of course the main topic question here: are these lockdown orders unconstitutional? Love to hear what you think. Now, before we get out of here, by the way, go ahead and comment down below so we can have that conversation. Also, we got a mailbag question for all of you that I'm going to cover. The question for you here is, we want to hear from you. It's really kind of something similar, but I want to know specifically your story. What's been going on in your local situation? This says local governments around the country have been taking these drastic measures, and I want to know your experiences. What's been going on in your local community? Do you think have the measures been? Everyone's under some form of lockdown, but they vary from place to place. I mean, you can go to the county next to you and it's completely locked down, and here you are just fine, which is kind of my circumstance. How would you rate the performance of your local community? How have they handled of it? Do you approve of it? Do you disapprove of it? Where do they get things right? Where do they get things wrong? Love to hear what you think. Please, you can either comment below on that question or send a reply to info@informedamerican. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.